ओहो हो, क्या हाल है जनता। आ गए हम दोबारा ट्रेडिंग सेटअप। देखते हैं भाई क्या है आज के लिए हमारा। कल तो हमने कोई भी ट्रेड प्लेस नहीं किया था। क्या बात है, देखो भाई कितने सुंदर तरीके से मार्केट एग्जैक्ट उसी फेयर वैल्यू गैप के अंदर गया है एंड वापस आ गया है। राइट, यही बोल रहा था मैं, लिक्विडिटी जो मार्केट लेने जाती है वो ऐसे ही जाती है। देखो ये जो इनएफिशिएंसी थी इस एरिया में, एक बार हटा देता हूँ मैं इसको। ये देखो ये जो गैप था ये यहाँ से बस लिक्विडिटी ली गई है और कुछ नहीं हुआ है। राइट, फिर यहाँ से अभी कैंडल कैसे बनती है, लेट्स सी। तो ये डे टाइम फ्रेम पे है। अब हम छोटे टाइम फ्रेम पे जाएंगे, 1 आवर पे जाएंगे। तो क्या चल रहा है 1 आवर पे। ठीक है, 10 बज चुके हैं, 10 बजे चालू हो गया हमारा मार्केट। इसको हटाओ भाई। 10 से लेके हमें करना है 11 बजे तक। ये कब लॉन्ग किया था हमने। अरे यार ये दूसरा अकाउंट पे आ गया, कौन सा अकाउंट में है। ओके ये वाला अकाउंट है, ये वाला दूसरा अकाउंट चल रहा है मेरा। ठीक है, ये वाला ट्रेड बहुत टाइम पहले से प्लेस हुआ होगा। यहाँ प्लेस हुआ था ये ब्रेकआउट कैप्चर किया था। ठीक है, इसको बुक कर लेते हैं। DXY पे आ जाते हैं। ऑल राइट, तो यहाँ पे इनएफिशिएंसीज दिख रही होगी काफ़ी सारी। अभी तो कैंडल बन रही है। हमारा सिंपल सा सेटअप है, फेयर वैल्यू गैप के अकॉर्डिंग चलेंगे हम। दैट्स इट, वही हमारी प्लानिंग है। ये रहा हमारे ट्रेडिंग के रूल्स। ये हमारे ट्रेडिंग के रूल्स हैं। 1:3 ट्रेड करेंगे फेयर वैल्यू गैप के रीज़न में। दैट्स इट। ठीक है, बहुत बड़ी कैंडल बन चुकी है 10 बजते ही। और न्यूयॉर्क टाइम जोन पे है, ये याद रखना। तो जो कोई भी साथ में चार्ट देख रहा है वो बस मैच करके चलना टाइम जोन को। ओके, दिस लुक्स लाइक एन इंटरेस्टिंग पॉडकास्ट, लेट्स सी। पालकी शर्मा। ओके लेट्स सी, ये वाला देखते हैं।
Hey, do you want to pay less taxes out of your salary or business income this year? You see, when you go to the CA at the end,
I got a call like after a few days. Hello, Shraddha, where are you? I said, my sister not to.
Hey everybody, welcome to yet another episode of One Plus Open Conversations. Today we're going to be talking to Shraddha Sharma. Shraddha's been an
लेट्स सी यार, पहले ना एक बार अपना सेटअप देखते हैं यहाँ पे कहाँ पे हमारा फेयर वैल्यू गैप बाकी है। तो ये सब तो देखो जैसे कवर हो चुके हैं। ये यहाँ पे आके एफिशिएंसी पूरी हो गई। ठीक है, इनएफिशिएंसी यहाँ पे पूरी हो गई। ये वाली इनएफिशिएंसी यहाँ पे पूरी हो गई। राइट, तो यूजली इस एरिया की जितने ये सारी की सारी इनएफिशिएंसी पूरी हो चुकी है। अब जो एक बाकी रह रही है वो मेरे को ये वाली लग रही है, ये वाला फेयर वैल्यू गैप। ठीक है, ये ऊपर वाले सब पूरे हो चुके हैं। यहाँ पे सीधा नीचे आएगा और यहाँ पे डिप करके देखो, लेट्स सी क्या होता है। ठीक है, एक ये इम्बैलेंस है। उसके बाद यहाँ पे लिक्विडिटीज़ हैं हमारी। ठीक है, इन लोज के अराउंड ये वाला पॉइंट हो गया, ये वाला पॉइंट हो गया। एक बहुत बड़ा पॉइंट यही है, इनएफिशिएंट। तो यहाँ आएगा तो यहाँ डिप मार सकता है। ऑलराइट, तो यही इसी रीजन के अराउंड देखते हैं क्या बिहेवियर रहता है मार्केट का। कहना गलत गलत, छुपाना सही। तो बहुत बड़ी कैंडल बन चुकी है, तो ये ऐसी कैंडल्स में तो इनएफिशिएंसीज होती हैं। तो अगर यहाँ पे पूरा नहीं हुआ तो मोस्ट प्रोबेबली आज हम इसी चीज़ का वेट करेंगे। इस इनएफिशिएंसी के अंदर जैसे ही मार्केट आएगा उस टाइम हम शॉर्ट करेंगे। अब देखो, जैसे ये वाला कंसेप्ट बताया था 1 घंटे वाला, किसी ने वहाँ पे उसके अकॉर्डिंग ट्रेड लिया होता तो ये बहुत अच्छा मूव वो पकड़ सकता था। बहुत सारे सेटअप्स है, धीरे धीरे करके मैं रिवील करूँगा एक एक। क्या बात करो यार, ऐसी नन्ही नन्ही से खुशियाँ भाई। मैं दिखाता हूँ क्या नन्ही से खुशियाँ। मेरे को लगा कोई स्ट्रीम वगैरह इतना कुछ देखता नहीं है, पता नहीं क्या होगा, बट जब मैंने यहाँ जाके देखा तो भाई इसके व्यूज़ जो हैं यहाँ पे 46 हो चुके हैं भाई। दैट्स अ गुड नंबर मैन। सो हेलो, वेलकम टू न्यू गाइस, जो कोई भी आ रहा है, ठीक है। लेट्स सी भाई, एंगेज करते रहो, कंटेंट आता रहेगा। कंटेंट छोड़ो भाई, पूरी कंपनी रेडी है तुम्हें सपोर्ट करने के लिए, तुम्हारी फाइनेंशियल जर्नी सपोर्ट करने के लिए। आई हैव अ प्लान। कूल ब्रो। चलो भाई पॉडकास्ट पे चलते हैं तब तक।
Inspiration of mine because she's been in media for such a long time, especially in startup media. One of the
एक सेकेंड देना मेरे को। ऑलराइट, वी आर बैक एट इट।
first known startup media companies in India that covered startups. It was the first place I was ever covered, and therefore is very special to my heart. But today is going to be a media masterclass. You are going to learn everything from how do you build a media company, how much money do you need, exactly to the rupee, to the last rupee, how much money you need, how much money can sponsors pay you, how do you monetize media, whether it's directly through ads or events or subscriptions, which are the right
This
ways,
sounds
which
like
are the
an
wrong
interesting
ways.
podcast.
Plus, we're also going to learn about predictions for the future, media's thoughts on content creators, and all of that wonderful stuff, all in today's episode. So stay tuned till the very ending because this is an episode I wouldn't miss. So you shouldn't either.
You shouldn't either?
आपको शायद पता ना हो कि SSL क्या है, लेकिन हैकर्स इसके बारे में अच्छी तरह जानते हैं और
Shraddha, I want to start off with a very simple question. How did you get here? Like, what's your story so far? Like, what's your story?
What is my story? You know, honestly, I keep thinking about what is my story, and maybe I'm not generalizing it, but my story is the story of a very middle class India. I've talked about a lot that I grew up in Bihar, in a time when it was politically very, very non-stable, not safe, and I grew up in a family of 4 daughters. So somewhere that really shaped me. I had to work hard. I had to prove that, and that time, dowry, if you are born as a girl child, then dowry is like people think, oh my God, liability. And I was told that when I was born, then everyone in my family cried, my distant relatives, ki teesri beti ho gayi hai. So somewhere that sense was there.
The people living in cities, do you realize that कि ऐसा भी एक पार्ट है इंडिया में जहाँ पे डाउरीज को, बेटीज को ऐसे अलग से ही ट्रीट किया जाता है, लाइक देयर मेंटल स्पेस इज टोटली डिफरेंट while growing up. And I think that is one of the major reason why India has potential to grow more, क्योंकि हमने बहुत सारे पार्ट देख लिए हैं इंडिया में. एक जो लो इनकम से एक अच्छे सिटी में आता है, सो दे वांट टू लेवरेज एंड टेक इट फर्दर.
And I have to do something and I don't have to be a liability. So maybe my story, it's like, the ghost behind me has been that liability nahi manna, independent. And somewhere, and I say Bihar because when you're a Bihari, you talk in a certain way. In Hindi, hum कहते हैं हम आ रहे हैं, मैं नहीं, मतलब, so there's a sing song way, a Bihari way, which I'm sure many of your viewers would understand what I'm saying. So I was always ridiculed also about that. And all these things shaped me in the way that one started your story. Somewhere for me, it was very important that where you come from, who you are, किस family में हुए हैं, कहाँ से आए, should not determine the story, because we are all special. And I think if I was treated very specially, then this would not have happened. And that shaped, I feel that's primarily my story.
Do you feel that can be generalized? That today, I noticed this a lot, right? And I'm afraid to say it in public, but I'll say it anyway. Do you feel like a little bit of that strife in your early years, a little bit of that struggle is important for success? Because I see a lot of people who are coddled today by their parents and all, right? Like, we are a little bit, the next generation is a little bit spoiled. Do you feel like, at least from your perspective, struggle was necessary to get to where you were?
Yeah, absolutely. Varun, maybe it's my bias, but I have a huge...
ये बहुत बड़ा गैप बना है, बट ये 10 बजे वाली कैंडल है. सो यहाँ पे हम ले लेंगे 10 बजे के, क्योंकि गैप बहुत ही बड़ा है, इसको इग्नोर नहीं करने वाले हम. ठीक है, लेट्स सी क्या होता है. इफ़ मार्केट कम बैक्स अप टू दिस एरिया 50%, वी कैन
enchantment with pain. In life, you have to experience pain. You have to experience disappointment, rejection, humiliation. All those things are the best. Sounds cliched, but they are actually the best teachers. Because if you're treated very nicely, I don't know how will you grow. Because if you look at this whole, butterfly or whatever, सब कुछ तो pain से ही निकलता है. Anything.
Yeah, after some point, like इन योर मिड आफ्टर 20s, बहुत सारे मिड 20s में शुरू हो जाते हैं ये दिमाग को हिट करना कि बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं जो अगर सर्टेन वे पे, सर्टेन तरीके से, सर्टेन टाइम पे नहीं होती, तो आज हम इस सिचुएशन पे नहीं होते, एग्जैक्ट सिचुएशन. फॉर एग्जांपल, मी बीइंग इन स्टार्टअप, पर्टिकुलरली फाइनेंशियल एजुकेशन स्टार्टअप, अगर मेरी जर्नी उस वे में नहीं होती तो मैं आज यहाँ पे नहीं होता, मेरा दूसरा रूट होता. That is what butterfly effect is.
Thing remarkable, there has to be pain, and if there is no pain, then how are you? I get attracted to people who have struggled and who have come up on their own, and that's why startups, I love startups.
Yeah. Was that the origin story behind your story? Like, how did that happen? Like, I know you were at CNBC for a while. How did the CNBC thing happen?
Like I told you, that Bihari never left me, and I went to media, and somewhere I thought in media, people celebrate success. All of us celebrate success, and we all want to learn from success, watch success. Tabhi to lifestyle of the rich and famous and all those things, there's an aspirational value. We are an aspirational country. But somewhere I just... and I used to really meet a lot of people, and they all had a story. And one day I remember very clearly, an entrepreneur called me, very successful, big name, but not relatively big name in the scheme of things for a prime time. And he told me, and he called me and he said, oh, who do you think you are? You're in CNBC and this and that. And mujhe wo slot nahi mila. He had an IPO, and a bigger IPO had happened. And he had tears. And to me, that was a very, very big surprise, because he's one of the most confident people. You'll meet him and you'll be like, wow, like, and I don't want to name him. And for him, his story was so personal. His venture was so personal. It was his, uski tapasya thi, uska journey tha. And that made me realize that for everyone, for all of us, our story is so important. And we need that voice. We need to tell our stories. And somewhere, I started going to IIT Bombay. I used to meet people, young people. I always, I think that if you have to be relevant, then you need to keep talking to very, very young people. And startups was a word that I heard in 2008, and they wanted to tell their stories. And when I asked that let's do these stories at scale, that time it couldn't.
ओके लेट्स सी। देखो यहाँ पे मार्केट वापस आ रहा है, हमारे एरिया के अंदर वापस आ रहा है, ठीक है। तो इसका 50% विल वेट कि इस रीजन तक आ जाए। बहुत बड़ी कैंडल बनी हुई है, ठीक है। एक और तरीका 50% निकालने का, फिबोनाची समवेयर है इससे ऊपर, फिबोनाची कर लेते हैं हम। तो इट्स ऑल अबाउट द कंसेप्ट ब्रो, कंसेप्ट, साइकोलॉजी एंड रिस्क मैनेजमेंट, दैट्स इट। दैट इज़ ऑल यू नीड फॉर ट्रेडिंग। हो सकता है यहाँ से नीचे आ जाए, बिल्कुल कोई इशू नहीं है। हम बस वेट करेंगे कि यहाँ पे आता है या नहीं आता है। यहाँ पे टच करेगा, विल सेट इन द सेलिंग ट्रेड।
Didn't happen, so I started your story.
So, CNBC, to your story, you've told us that it was this one, story that really triggered it. But what's the big shift in your story going from like a small company from?
हाय गाइस, जो भी दूसरा नया बंदा आया भाई वॉचिंग में, हाय, आपका नाम क्या है, कौन है भाई, बताओ, इंट्रोड्यूस योरसेल्फ, अपना चेहरा लाओ आगे।
Just somebody writing stories about like from a blog to the juggernaut that it became when I became 20 years old. That was a big shift for you.
Thank you for saying that.
and I think I tell you why I felt it was a juggernaut, right? Because every story I'd consume about startups, everything that I was learning, everything about Zomato, this, that, it felt like you weren't settling, right? You were like in this never settle attitude where you're like, I want to cover every single founder, every single new founder who's raised money, and I was like, that is something I can learn from. So I want to know from your perspective, what is the shift? How did you go from like just a blog to now relevant?
Thank you, Varun. You're being kind. Like in my mind, I think that we are very, very, very small, and we've done 1.5 lakh stories so far.
That's not small.
But I just think that they are, like, if you ask me in my mind, and I can tell you since 15 years, if you'll see me 15 years back, I spoke the same thing. I have spoken the same thing for 15 years, that India is a country of over 1 billion people and stories need to be told. And in my mind, everyone told me it's a blog, it will not work, don't do it, it's an NGO, you shouldn't do it. And somewhere the more I heard, no, this shouldn't. Some of the VCs I knew that time, because I was working in CNBC, and I called, बोले ये बिजनेस है ही नहीं, ये तो मतलब लिख रही हो, you could do it in WordPress and Blogger, write it over there, it's your fancy, it's your hobby, do it, because this is not going to work, this is and you will get bored, and there is no story here. And startups, what is that? And see,
मोस्ट ऑफ द वीसी वर्ल्ड इन इंडिया, वो भाई कॉपी पेस्ट करने में लगे हुए हैं यूएस को, और दे आर सम बिग पोजीशन इन सम गुड कंपनीज, देन उन्होंने एक इन्वेस्टमेंट का फॉर्म बना लिया। सो दे हैव वेरी सेट रूल्स डिफाइंड बिफोर इन्वेस्टमेंट। सो बीइंग अ फाउंडर इज़ वेरी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम बीइंग एन इन्वेस्टर। एक फाउंडर को रिस्क लेना पड़ता है, अगर पैसा लिया है तो उसको कैसे वापस करे, उसको प्रॉफिट में कैसे बदले। बट इन्वेस्टर बहुत सारी कंपनी में इन्वेस्टेड है। सो द साइकोलॉजी एंड माइंड ऑफ investor and a founder is very different.
see, I'm talking about 2008. This is long time back, because today people will say, okay, what? But 2008 was a very different context. And the more I heard that this is an NGO, this will not.
देखो भाई, कैंडल आने वाली हमारी सिर्फ और सिर्फ 20 सेकंड बाकी है। लेट्स सी, यहाँ तक आती है, फेल हो जाती है नीचे ही, यहीं से रिटर्न हो जाएगा कैंडल। वी डोंट नो। ओके, यहाँ से वापस आ रहा है, ठीक है। लेट्स सी, एकदम स्पाइक दे के भी ऊपर जा सकता है। कहना गलत हो सकता है, आज भी स्टॉप लॉस लग जाए, वी नेवर नो, वी जस्ट हैव सेट ऑफ रूल्स, उसके अकॉर्डिंग हम फॉलो कर रहे हैं, एंड देन वी विल सी कि क्या रिजल्ट मिलता है हमें. दैट्स इट. तो ये भी एक फेयर वैल्यू गैप बन जाएगा अगर ये नीचे तक नहीं आता है तो. और ये देखा जाए तो 10 बजे के बाद का बना है, ठीक है. बट वी हैव डिसाइडेड कि हम इसके अंदर जाएंगे एंड 1:2 के हिसाब से जाएंगे. ओह 1:3. 1:3 एक्चुअली में बहुत बड़ा हो जाएगा क्योंकि कैंडल बहुत बड़ी है. बट वील जस्ट फॉलो द रूल. लेट्स सी क्या होता है.
Not work. So somewhere for me it was not a media company or anything. It was like somewhere my pain or my need for validation and being
करके दिखाना है.
हाँ करेंगे. और सबकी स्टोरी जिसको irrelevant कह रहे हैं, uncool, unsexy, these stories will not work. Why? And someone had told me this is BNI category and I was like what is BNI? So भूखा नंगा India category, इससे पैसा भी नहीं बनेगा, advertising भी नहीं होगा. So everything और नहीं होगा नहीं होगा नहीं होगा. कोई एक दिन अगर कह देता ना कि होगा so maybe I wouldn't. And in my mind it was always very big. It is a delusional. I always think, like, today also if you ask me, I just think that I wish I had a lot of money because your story should be in every town, village and city to tell everyone's story. Because it's not, like, we all feel good, no? Like, we all need that encouragement. I don't see it as media. I see it as an encouraging platform. It should just encourage everyone who's trying to do something. So, yeah, somewhere having... So, if I had to tell people who are in unsexy, uncool, non-scalable, NGO sort of category, is that it's all in the mind, yeah. Like, you have to think it's big.
And you think your big shift was the fact that you thought it was very big, but the reality of what people were telling you was very different. So it became about, I've got to prove everybody wrong. And therefore, that started resulting in you putting effort into your story and that growing. You feel that you can attribute... Because I'm trying to find... I know life is a series of, a lot of random things, right? I'm trying to find one instance that really powered you through.
There are 2-3 very simple things, yeah, Varun, that kept me going. I remember I had written about an entrepreneur who was an army guy and he left and he had started something. And he cried, like, that... Like, this means so much to me. And for me, every day, imagine what I was doing. Writing 5-10 stories of entrepreneurs, of people doing something. 10 लोग तो कह रहे हैं ना कि बहुत सही है. मेरा दिन अच्छा गया. मेरे family में दिखाने के लिए कुछ हुआ. मेरा validation हुआ. Every day, if you're getting that kind of a high, then that is a big thing.
You get dopamine from the fact that your supporters, even though the minority at that point, were just vocal about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And the second thing was... I think somewhere my business context, because I was working before and it didn't jump into it, was that I remember first Sun Microsystems used to be there, which got sold to Oracle. And I remember this very clearly, 2008 end, Bakshish Datta used to be there and they said, oh, we need startups in our program. And that gave me that, acha, theek hai. I still remember the deal. He said 25,000 rupees. I said, no, give me, and if you can get me 100 startups. And I said, I'll get you 200, you give me 1,00,000 rupees. And enrolled for the program because it was a free program. Then I thought somewhere ki paisa shayad ban sakta. It has been just experiment. Experiment based on that stories have to be told. Ab uske liye jo karna hai. But yeah, big moment if you ask me, getting investment. Like, unfortunately.
This is the Ratan Tata investment?
Yes, along with.
How did that happen? I know Ratan at that point was not a fan of media.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग कहानी हो चुकी है. अभी मार्केट कहाँ पे आ रहा है? 102 पॉइंट हमें कहाँ चाहिए? 102.200 के पास हमें अटेंटिव होना है. ठीक है, याद रखना चैट.
In fact, he told me that media and I don't get along.
So how do you get the meeting with Ratan? If I'm a young girl, let's say 21 years old, I want to get into media, and I need to raise money, right? And I want to meet somebody like Ratan Tata. What do I need to have? Like, how many views do I need to have? How do I get an intro with him?
This is the question which I think you should cut this into a module because I have got thousands of people reaching out to say, can you connect me to Mr. Tata?
This video is an MBA masterclass on making, media company. How did you raise money from Ratan Tata?
So
step by step. Huh?
Very simple. So I had got money, got money from Kalari Capital, Vani Kola. So she had all her companies present to Mr. Tata. And I still remember it was 2015 and he had flown himself from Mumbai and come to Bangalore. And I know that I was seeing that companies were presenting, they all had slides and decks and, market kya hai, sizing and all those words which are very, very important, right? TAM kitna hai, revenue kya hoga. And it was proper presentation. And I noticed that while he was listening to everyone, he was dozing off because he was tired and he's old. So then I asked that, Mr. Tata, would you like a cup of tea or coffee? And he said, yes, please. And then, but I knew also that my time I was not, your story aisa thodi hai number one company hai ya jo bhi, all the important more funded companies were presenting. I was last in the line and I didn't even have a presentation, to be honest. Then it was like, okay, the meeting is over. But Varun, a night before that, I had not slept. And the law of attraction secret book, I had said, Mr. Tata has invested in my company. And I swear, I'm going on record to say, whole night I said, matlab, excitement se hi nahi aaya. Puri raat Mr. Tata has invested in my company. I swear on God, I did that. And I was like, oh, my meeting is not going to happen. And I was like, no, still in that crazy moment, it is going to happen. It is. So then when I had given teeth and Vani said, oh, Shraddha, she runs your story. Then he asked me out of politeness or whatever. So I said, Mr. Tata, you have to give me 1 minute because it was ending the meeting and my meeting was not happening. So I said, Mr. Tata, you have said this, that it still hurts me, and you've gone on record to say this, that it still hurts me that in this country where you come from or what where you are from still determines how far you can go, right? Like if you're from a rich family or whatever. And I want an equal India where everyone has an equal opportunity. And I said, Mr. Tata, I have lived that for the last 8 years, every single day, where every story should be important. And you have to support me, invest, and support all the entrepreneurs and stories. And he was like, because I was like this, like you have to, like there's no option not to. Then he smiled and then he was like, then he said, so he said, media and I don't get along. I said, Mr. Tata, you and I will get along because the vision is this. And he started laughing. And then I heard from his team that, he'll put in money. And somewhere, that's what I'm saying, that,
Very interesting, man. देखो भाई, कैंडल तो नीचे आ गई, ठीक है. केल पीडी कर दिया इस कैंडल ने, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. वेट करेंगे, दोबारा आएगा तो ही करेंगे, नहीं आएगा तो नहीं करेंगे. दैट इज़ हाउ यू वेट फॉर योर सेटअप. पैसा है अकाउंट में, पड़े रहने दो भाई. सही मौके पे हमारे रूल पे सिर्फ और सिर्फ मेरी मर्ज़ी के अकॉर्डिंग मेरा पैसा यूज़ होगा. दैट्स द साइकोलॉजी यू हैव टू बिल्ड. स्ट्रॉन्ग सिग्मा टेट साइकोलॉजी.
समवेयर दी ऑनेस्टी, मतलब ये बहुत ओल्ड स्कूल लगता है, मगर विश्वास, कॉन्फिडेंस एंड जस्ट द प्योरिटी. यू कांट, like, sorry to say the word, but you can't bullshit your way into doing these kind of things. You have to have, जब दिल है ना तो हो जाता है. And I was like thinking,
दैट्स ट्रू. मोस्ट पीपल ट्राई टू, लाइक, वही वाली बात है यार, जैसे इंस्टाग्राम पे रील्स है अपने आप को खुश और लग्जरी दिखाने की. बहुत सारा ऐसा बुलशिट सेम स्टार्टअप इंडस्ट्री में भी है. भाई नाक में खुजली बहुत हो रही है. तो हर जगह है भाई ये चीज़. सो वंस यू हैव लिव्ड द स्टोरी ऑफ द स्टार्टअप यू आर डूइंग, your pitch will be also different.
that day I said, okay, the law of attraction really, really works. I got a call like after a few days. Hello, Shraddha, where are you? I said, my sister is driving. I was in Mumbai that time for a meeting. I'm on the road. So he said, okay, are you ready to hear a news? And I said, yes, tell me. Then he said, oh, Mr. Tata really liked you and he wants to invest in your story. And I was like, oh, I told my sister, like, stop the car. And it was I said, listen, very, very thankful. And I think also the purpose, maybe he related also to the purpose to support. And I remember that day I was so emotional. I called my father because I hadn't spoken to him after my mother's death for many, many years. And I told him, Papa, that's the joke all of you should hear, is that I called him and this was very emotional. I thought this is a moment for me to call because Tata naam to Bihar mein sab koi suna hua hai. Matlab India mein sab koi suna hua hai. And I called him and I said, Papa, Mr. Tata, Ratan Tata is investing in your story. Then he says, And then he, of course.
That's a sign of validation from Indian dad.
Yeah. But again, the Indian dad, he says, But what's the big deal? He has invested. I read in the newspaper. He's investing in every company. He's invested in this. So यही है मेरा बाप. मैंने कहा okay. But then he said, okay, good. But so to answer your question, it's sometimes. Not sometimes. I think mostly it is preparation. Every day doing the same work, manifesting. I believe in.
Lucky in between.
And listen, lucky.
Like 5 people would have said no.
Oh, listen, everyone said no. But I also have to call out, I have more investors. I have Vani Kola, Kalari Capital. She's been phenomenal. 314, Qualcomm Ventures, and UC Berkeley Endowment Fund, which is R&T and UC Berkeley had tied up. So Mr. Tata, the fund, the collaboration also invested in the company.
But Shraddha, if you were starting like a media company today, right now everything's changed. When you started, I think we had maybe a handful of media companies, serious ones. Today it seems like everyone has a YouTube channel, everyone has this. It feels like a crazy world now. If you were giving advice to an 18, 19-year-old to start a media company today, because this podcast, by the way, everything that I'm doing here is about the future. It's like I try to do 1 or 2 questions about the past, and I'm like, okay, if you were to rebuild it, but 2024 and beyond, how would that look? How would that work? So I'd love to know from you, what would you do differently today? Like,
I think the answer we can take from such questions is what are the principles the companies have built on. ठीक है, अभी तक जैसे 2019 तक हर कोई किताबों में जो लिखा उस वे में स्टार्टअप बिल्ड करना चाह रहा था. क्रैश हुआ, मार्केट में फंड खत्म हुआ, देन एवरीवन हैज़ टू लुक आउट फॉर सस्टेनेबिलिटी, फिर वो बिजनेस की तरह ऑपरेट करने लग गए, राइट? सो नो मैटर वट एवर इज द आंसर, टेक आउट द प्रिंसिपल्स.
AI is there. It seems a little bit scary. I know you have, your perspective on journalism has changed over the last decade. Fire away.
First, I would tell an 18, 19-year-old, think 10 times before starting a media company, because media company is, all businesses, starting up anything is very hard. In India,
जैसे पहली बात तो ये, आई डोंट नो वेदर शी थॉट सो मच 10 times बिफोर स्टार्टिंग अ मीडिया कंपनी. लाइक जब तुम 19 के होते हो यार, तुम्हारे दिमाग में इतना सब नहीं होता, तुम्हारे दिमाग में बस एक क्रेजी आइडिया होता है, एंड देन यू जस्ट गो बियॉन्ड इट, गो बिहाइंड इट. तो अगर वो वर्कआउट करता है या रास्ते में तुम दिक्कतों के बाद भी अगर तुम्हें उस चीज़ से उतना लगाव होता है, यू गो फॉर इट.
it becomes doubly hard. But media company, because for India, because if you're starting today, and I think in last 15 years relatively it is becoming better and
ऊपर
better,
जाएगा या नहीं
because
जाएगा,
if you
क्या
look
लगता
at
है?
people who've created categories, companies that have created categories in this space, you need money. We don't come from a social security background, and while we hear, there's ample of capital for good entrepreneurs and all that, I think mostly
How
entrepreneurs
much
are
money
good.
though? If you're starting a media company today, what's the minimum amount of capital you'd raise?
I would say that today, because it's not media, but it's also the distribution, and today it's increasingly hard. When I started in 2008, I listened, thoda dimag tha, nahi shuru karti main. Agar if there was anyone who was covering startup in 2008, startup as a word, if you searched on Google, was not there when it came to Indian media at all. So then for me, it was that audience, that target, that community was very distinct.
You found something that nobody else was tackling, and you said this is a gap.
Yes.
And you went after
Yes.
it. But let's say I found a gap today. I'm talking about, let's say an 18, 19-year-old kid found a gap today.
But Varun, today I just also want to call out, finding a gap today increasingly is much harder. Like ekdam new territory finding is much harder. Like I know everyone is a YouTuber today. Everyone is a podcaster today. Everyone is covering every possible category. It's imploded in a way. So that's why to build a brand, and इसलिए पैसा चाहिए आज, क्योंकि to stand out in the crowd you will need consistency. To do a shoot you will need consistency. People demand a certain sort of a view, production quality.
बट अंटिल यू नो हाउ टू यूज़ दैट मनी, कोई फ़ायदा नहीं होगा. फंडिंग ऐसे ही उठा के आधा पैसा तो सिर्फ इसलिए बन के रहता है एक्सपेरिमेंट करने के लिए. सो यू शुड हैव सम नॉलेज यार इन द इंडस्ट्री. वर्क विथ समवन. इंडस्ट्री में देखो क्या चलता है, कैसे चलता है, कहाँ पे कितना एफर्ट्स लगता है, देन रेज द मनी.
Experience which an audience
That's
today
my thought.
expects or a viewer expects is also different.
So give me a specific number. 50 lakhs, 75 lakhs, a crore. Just do some rough math.
See, I'm a very bootstrap mentality person, so I would say 50 lakh से 1 crore में at least you have Shri Ganesh हो जाएगा. Zero, you'll be able to launch something.
And you think, obviously people who come from wealthy backgrounds, that should not be hard to raise from friends and family. But otherwise, if you come from a tier 2, tier 3 background, this would be something you'd raise venture capital for or angel investment for.
Angel investment.
And what kind of angel investors would you look for?
I would say people who've been in this space, people who understand from media or ancillary. Because today media also, what do we mean by media? Media could mean today even a gaming company. Anyone who has a distribution, right? Anyone who has some sort of a content. Today I would say so many VCs are today media company. Name a category, everyone is a media company. And I think media has become like I don't know a category where media is not a play today.
And if you don't build a media arm, you die.
Yeah, you have to be talking. You have to, there's so much of cacophony of everyone talking something or the other. You have to stand out. So today breaking from that noise and establishing yourself is much harder than it was 15 years back.
Got it. So let me summarize the steps so far. Find a gap, raise 50 lakhs to a crore. What's the next step? Who do you hire?
One, of course, if you can find co-founders who believe and who can come with no cost on equity, then get them.
How do you find them? In media especially, do you go to journalists who you think can graduate to co-founder level, or do you find people completely outside of journalism?
I think, that question I would say would be second question. The first question would be of someone who's interested. Because to me, imaginative people who with execution skills, and they could be across. Today, see people who are doing some great content and distribution are not necessarily, they would be finance professionals. And today we're living in that world. You could be a great chef, you could be a great skin doctor with a very nice beauty distribution or a beauty, this thing. So find someone who is interested in the space and the sort of media that you're creating, someone who comes. But I am of course saying that there is an advantage to having certain sort of experience and understanding of the space that you're entering in. Because this is such a fluid space today. Like media, like I really think about it. Aaj media hai kya? Like because it's getting so disintermediated, right? Like earlier when I grew up, I had NDTV, right? Like English agar seekhna hai, to NDTV dekho. You read Times of India. The print and TV by far were the definition of media. And there were certain anchors, and then there were certain reporters whom you read and you know watched, and it was one way of distribution. Like वो है और limited था distribution. आज के date में, if I am today interested in finance content or any stock market, I can search and there might be some YouTuber who will give me far better input than a media company, right? So that to me is an interesting thing, and that's why to start in this space would require a lot of things.
आई डोंट नो यार, मेरे को ऐसे क्यों लग रही है मार्केट आज साइडवेज हो जाएगा यहाँ पे, क्योंकि ये ऊपर से तो ले चुका है लिक्विडिटी, यहाँ पे टच कर रहा है, ज़्यादा स्पेस है नहीं. सो लेट्स सी हाउ इट प्लेज आउट. ये सब ओवर थिंकिंग है, हमें बस ये रूल्स फॉलो करने हैं, दैट्स इट. ठीक है, न्यूयॉर्क टाइम जोन 10 से 11 बजे तक 5 मिनट का टाइम फ्रेम, फिर वैल्यू गैप होना चाहिए, फिर वैल्यू गैप हम ढूंढ चुके हैं, 1:3 का ट्रेड प्लेस करेंगे. ठीक है, और 25 मिनट बाकी हैं न्यूयॉर्क टाइम के हिसाब से 11 बजने में.
थिंकिंग इन टर्म्स ऑफ टारगेट क्या है, ऑडियंस क्या है, कंटेंट क्या होगा, प्ले क्या है, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन क्या होगा, एक्सपर्टीज क्या होगा, व्हाट यू ब्रिंगिंग टू इट, एंड टुडे मोर ऑफन देन नॉट रिलेशनशिप एंड नेटवर्क क्या होगा. ऑल दोस थिंग्स बिकम वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इफ यू आर स्टार्टिंग अ मीडिया कंपनी.
Okay, let's say you found a co-founder. Let's say you found your best friend, like this girl, 20 years old, sitting, in Aurangabad, has found a co-founder, and they found a gap, and they've raised 50 lakhs to a crore. What's the next step?
Then you have to produce the content, and the biggest thing I would say,
Execute with
the
the crore,
only
bhai.
to me, and again it's my bias, the only and
Money
the
is
biggest
just a
thing you
fuel, bro.
require in this business is stamina, right? Like stamina is very important, and consistency. So you have to, like for me, when I started your story, I used to write every day.
used to write?
Yeah, 2008, 9, 10,
How much would you write? Like
5, 10 stories a day.
you write 5 stories.
Yeah,
That's-
but I'm not a writer. Neither. अभी तो मैं बहुत खुश हूँ कि AI और generative AI, and we should talk about that, is how that is disrupting. For me, it was like meet someone, I love you, I like you, I see your honesty. चलो लिखते हैं तुम्हारे बारे में, वो भी खुश, मैं भी खुश, और चलो, because it's about encouragement, right? So 5, 10, and I wouldn't sleep, right, every day. And I had someone in Jabalpur who I used to give him 3,000 to begin with, and he used to upload it. And I remember the site used to be Joomla software, but every day, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, consistency. So जो brand बनता है, वो every day you have to do that. So I would say that if you find someone and then start having that stamina to start writing every day, because it takes time to, there's this amazing analogy I believe in, that it takes drop to one day become an ocean.
Welcome, my fellow developers. Software development is incomplete without
The last piece of this, how do you make money off this? How are you monetizing? What are your unit economics, and what should these people learn from it?
I also think about it. ये तो सबसे कठिन सवाल है. Let me just say it's the toughest journey. Sometimes I think that the VCs and the people and the experts who had told me that you should have done an NGO, then I should have listened to them. Because it is tough to make money in media. Monetizing, let's be clear, as of now, I think media businesses across, not just in India, across the world, and more so in India because of the pricing and everything, is very, very hard, very tough. And that's why somewhere you have to build the hustle thing of how do you innovate on the revenue. So there are 2-3 things which your story did, and I think I feel proud about that, because we run a profitable company. We've run like 8 years, I bootstrapped, and it was profitable. And yes, when I raised money for a couple of years, it was not. Again, it was profitable, but last year I have to say we are not profitable. Hopefully this year again we will be. So is that, we said that to me, every user, we started positioning our audience very differently. And these are entrepreneurs, these are business owners, these are people who'll grow. And then we started talking to only people who would be interested in talking to this
And how
community.
would you talk to them? Would you email them first? Would you meet them at events?
I would meet them at events, like big host, and just find where they are and be where they are. In fact, and then those are things that we don't talk. These are very practical things. You have to go meet and sell yourself, because they're not going to be coming to you. Emails they will get a lot, and they'll not be responding to you. So you have to tap into your network and start meeting them. So initially one meets them, then you have to deliver, you have to perform, and then they start giving you more money. But I would say we are more of a B2B when it comes to the revenue part of it, is that it was doing certain sort of an understanding. I remember one company was entering India in the cloud space. Then how many startups are using cloud? What is their spend? Giving that kind of a research, doing roundtables, doing research papers, doing branded content series or educational series on certain topics. So that's where we started initially making money. Then of course events, Texbox. Now it's 14 years. Very early on, Texbox became a property where people were coming, because I think I would still say I feel proud about Texbox because
Wonderful events. Like actually, I feel of all the media events in India, Texbox is the best.
I also can say that. I'm very critical, Varun, about everything that we do, but I just think that Textpark somewhere is good.
Yeah, I'm telling you as an audience member,
Thank you.
unaffiliated, that it is pretty good, right? But today I know, I'm sure the sponsors pay a lot of money. But let's say when you did the first Textbox, which was so many years ago.
I still remember it very clearly. It was in 2010, and the money we made was 5 lakh rupees.
Interesting. From your title sponsor.
Yeah,
Can you give us
Microsoft
one?
was the sponsor, and Kanan Partners, a VC fund, was sponsored, and Mumbai Angels had given a little bit of money. So I clearly remember all 3 of them.
And how does it happen? How many meetings does it take for you to?
अरे भैया क्या चाह रहा भाई, मार्केट एकदम से साइडवेज ही हो गया ये तो यार, बेइज्जती करा रहा है यार मार्केट तो। देख रहे हो कैसे इमोशन आ रहे हैं। लेट्स सी, फूक मार रहा हूँ ऊपर चल रहा कैंडल।
To get 5 lakhs from them.
So Kanan Partners, I had a friend, so I pushed him and asked him, and of course, so that's what you have to hustle your way. Microsoft, I still remember the person there was Girish Joshi. I had to do a lot of meetings, but they used to run a program called Microsoft BizSpark, and they wanted to get on board a lot of startups. So it was very, very targeted and relevant for them. So they also supported it.
Interesting. And what do you think about subscriptions? I've been seeing a lot of media companies go the subscription route now, and I've seen large media companies really bet the company on it. I'm not a big believer personally, right? Because I mean, I've seen I do know there is some evidence in favor. I know in the US there are some companies that are doing subscription well, some media companies. In India though, I just feel like my behavior is like I don't pay for subscriptions too much, even if it's good quality content. But I'd love to know your thoughts on it.
We don't pay for software, what we were discussing. We don't like to pay. We'll pay for a movie maybe to go to a cinema hall. We'll pay for...
One time is fine.
Yeah. We'll pay for a rock concert show, or we'll pay for... We do pay. We have the paying power, but we don't pay for content. And especially if it is not... especially if it is content like we do in your story, which is not sensational. We have over-anchored on positive, standing with people who
Wait,
want
I have
to...
a question there. So you're saying overtly sensational content drives subscription?
Listen, I have a very strong view that nothing drives subscription, right? But maybe you would have a certain set of audience who will be intelligent people with a certain worldview. So maybe you'll find your tribe. So maybe there will be a certain, at scale, subscription in India still has to be proven. We have, I also have to say this on record, we have a subscription platform called CapTable, where we have some very fantastic journalists. They write content, 1 story a day. But that's a part of the overall. If I start betting on it, then that would not be it, because I somehow, personally, if you ask me, I'm not a fan of subscription. I feel good content should be available, and there should be people who subsidize for it or pay for it.
You think in a decade, this might change?
Interesting.
In a targeted way, yes. For example, if I am very, very interested in learning about, for example, I'm very interested in learning about...
If we look at newspaper, वो भी तो सब्सक्रिप्शन बेस्ड ही है, लाइक यू पेड मंथली। हाँ ठीक है, तुम क्रेडिट पे करते हो, बट इट इज़ अ सब्सक्रिप्शन, राइट? एंड कई लोग होते हैं जो एडवांस में पैसे दे देते हैं भैया 2 महीने के एकदम से। देयर इज़ अ ह्यूज ऑडियंस। आई थिंक इट जस्ट प्रोडक्ट, अ गुड प्रोडक्ट हैजंट, हिंदी में बोल लेता हूँ, अच्छा प्रोडक्ट अभी तक इंट्रोड्यूस नहीं हुआ है मार्केट में, इंडियन मार्केट्स में, जो ये चीज़ प्रूव कर पाए कि सब्सक्रिप्शन मॉडल वर्क्स इन इंडिया।
valuations or fundraising or certain, or something about fintech or something about, it could be any subject. Then having some very specialized content and paying, like Substack, right, in US, where people started newsletters. And
यार 1 घंटे की तो स्ट्रीम थी मेरी, 15 मिनट रह गए हैं और ये आधा घंटे का कैसा बाकी है?
and they had subscribers. Now I don't know how much it has scaled or not scaled, but audience was paying for it, and generally we look at US for all these things. So I think in India, maybe for certain sort of content, there would be a certain set of people who'll pay. But if you're thinking of a very scalable...
You're thinking like 100 million,
नहीं,
10
नहीं,
million
नहीं,
subscriptions, no one's proven that.
YouTube भी तो इतनी बार या ad देता है ना, subscribe to YouTube Premium. We are all hooked on to YouTube. But I wonder what's the number.
Yeah. So I want to show you something, okay? This is a very interesting piece of content. It steps up to what you just told me. Let me just open this. I did a reel recently. I've been doing lots of reels like this.
Disney just unveiled this robot that's got an actual personality. Unlike what Boston Dynamics or Tesla produces, this one seems like people are more likely to interact with it. Sort of like...
Oh, that's weird. It's all generative AI. So we've managed to fine-tune a model to do text. That it sort of writes. I think it's not perfect yet. We use a tool called HeyGen to do the video, and audio. We have our own stack to kind of clone our audio. I feel we're getting to the point where generative AI can be used to write a bunch of content. Especially the less investigative journalism you need to do to get a piece of content, the more likely it is to be disrupted by AI. I know that you're doing some Gen AI stuff. I'd love to know what it is and how you think the future, because this is all about the future, this podcast
Yeah,
especially, right? How's it going to play out, in your opinion?
One is that one has to be very open, because I just think that this space is only going to keep getting disrupted. It has, I would say, with the creators, with the YouTubes, with the podcasts, with the internet, so last 2-3 years and with COVID, like just see how the space is getting disrupted. The media space is getting disrupted. So many media companies, large media companies are now also struggling, right? So one, that it is going to get disrupted. Second is that I think generative AI, the biggest disruption in any space with AI would be in media space, in content space, and of course with this kind of a content, if you're doing something informational or something which is like where I can learn or pick or do, there I think there'll be a lot of influence of this. We also, in your story, we call it nucleus AI. We're writing a lot of stories, like a lot of stories.
You have your own AI internally.
Yes, we have a team, in fact very smart people from IIT Madras who are working, experimenting and doing some cool stuff, because we also, as you said, one has to be relevant, and so one is working on that. But having said all that, I still feel that there is going to be, in the new world, the good thing is, जैसे मुझे लगता है OTT से cinemas better हुए overall. So now even in a theater you start getting good movies with the regional cinemas coming, with the disruption that has happened with OTTs. In some way, I have to give credit that a lot of people, and I love Manoj Vajpayee, people like that got a voice. They became more superstar than we, what we saw of these people pre-OTT world. So that disruption happened because of the platform. So the quality and the content became better. I think with generative AI, of course, there'll be a lot of disruption, a lot of mundane works, press release writing, जैसे हमने कहा informational content, it's सारे होंगे. But I also think that it's also going to be a great world, because it will also lead to creative brains and to human imaginations to do different kinds of content. And I think that imagination realm of that, I still feel AI is what you feed into it, and they give that, right? So it's machine learning, the whatever you're feeding them, but the creative part of it, how you interact,
How you think of the narrative.
yes, that I think will get very specialized, and I hope we will all be pushed to do a better job, to create better content, to think of better stories.
How should journalists think about that?
That's a very interesting question. I feel that the way we grew up with journalists and the way we have journalism and the world now, I think it's changing a lot, because like I don't know, the definition of journalist is also changing, right? Like, who is a journalist?
I'm talking about somebody who's been through, there are schools for this, right? I've been through journalism school. I've done this for a few years. I've got a set process. I follow the process to the T. And now I see these bunch of YouTubers going out and, just saying whatever they want.
That's the world. So you have to adapt, and you have to adjust, and you have to live this world, and you have to plan for this world, and you have to prepare yourself for this world.
Yeah, and what do they think about AI? Like, in the sense, if AI is there and it's writing the simple stories, do you feel journalism should move more towards investigative journalism? Because digging out information is not something AI can do yet.
I think the AI is a great tool for journalists, because now you can research and put some search, and you can get all sort of information. Your research time reduces, so that also gives you time to imagine, to think, to reflect, and to come up with stories which are very incisive. So not necessarily investigative.
AI is helpful if you have a skill.
It could also be very, very, new perspective, new insight, something that I have not heard, something that makes me think. And to do that, someone has to be thinking, like, some of the things which have remained eternal.
It's like that McDonald's narrative, right?
नहीं है,
McDonald's
तो
is
जाने
not a
देंगे.
food company,
जाती है
it's a
तो
real estate
जाने दो.
company. That's a perspective shift.
Yes.
And I know lots of Indian companies, when you talk to the founders, they're like, you're thinking about my company this way because the media has told you this, but actually I'm thinking about my company this way. And for me, those are very insightful. I feel like journalism move to that, but that requires you speaking to the founders.
Yes. And the other thing I also feel is that, like for my company, myself, I just never thought of your story as a media company. In fact, to be honest with you, Varun, I always thought that the labeling was very siloing your story to media. Because how do you say that we are a media company? I always thought that, I wanted to create a new word, and hopefully one day I will, is that it's a community platform. If, like to me, if I had to look at my last 15 years of journey, I said we've played a very crucial role in ecosystem building. Like we started talking about startups in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, blah. It imploded after 12, 13, 14 or whatever, 15, 16, whatever. But it was more about talking about people. And that, was it a media play, or was it an ecosystem play, or was it an ecosystem platform, community play, right? So the definition also of media, the definition of journalists.
And if you make a lot of the money from events, then technically media is just one of the things you do. You saw one shift, okay? You saw the shift of audience behavior from desktops, because I remember when that story came out about us, I was using it on the desktop.
Me too.
Then it moved to mobile phones. Then you probably saw a little bit of tablets in, and now you have these, foldables that are all over the place. So, and for me personally, it's like 7:5 ratio. I like reading from this. And now you have VR, AR, like newer platforms. It feels like audience behavior has changed. Formats is one thing, and I'm sure you're adapting how over time to those formats. But
Give me a minute, guys. ऑलराइट, हमारा टाइम अप होने वाला है, ठीक है। सो इफ़ मार्केट कम्स इन टू दिस रीजन आई विल बी टेकिंग अ ट्रेड। तो अभी मेरे को जाना पड़ेगा, स्ट्रीम बंद करना पड़ेगा। सो वी विल गेट बैक सून, एंड कल दोबारा सेम टाइम पे। ओह, कल तो सैटरडे है, कल ट्रेड बंद होंगे। सो प्रॉब्ली ऑन मंडे, सी यू देन। ओ भाई, कैंडल तो जा रही है यार ऊपर। आजा भाई आजा, आखिरी के 10 मिनट है, इस 10 मिनट में आ गई तो बढ़िया है, नहीं तो कोई इशू नहीं है, हम 1-2 कैंडल के अंदर यहाँ तक ले सकते हैं ट्रेड। बट स्ट्रिक्टली वी आर फॉलोइंग दिस, लेट्स सी क्या होता है। इस कैंडल को बनने दो यार। चले जा ऊपर भाई, चले जा। दिस इज द टेस्ट ऑफ ट्रेडिंग, पेशेंस का टेस्ट, ठीक है। सो अगर आता है आई विल प्लेस द ट्रेड, आई विल ट्राई टू प्लेस द ट्रेड। नहीं आता है तो कोई बात नहीं यार, दोबारा सेटअप बनेगा, दोबारा ढूंढेंगे, दोबारा कर लेंगे। आई जाए तो आ जाओ भाई, मैं तो वेट कर रहा हूँ। ठीक है गाइस, सो आई विल प्लेस द ट्रेड बट आई एम स्टॉपिंग द स्ट्रीम राइट नाउ।